Meeting, we bring in Mo Alithi, former communications director for the DNC and the executive director of Georgetown University's Institute of Politics and Public Policy. And Matt Schlapp is back, chairman of the American Conservative Union. It's great to have you both. Mo, I'll start with you. I asked Mike what Republicans wanted out of this meeting. What do you think the Democrats want?
Well, I think Democrats want to cut a deal. I think Democrats want to make sure that the government doesn't shut down. But I think you heard it there that Democrats also want to see that domestic programs like CHIP aren't left out in the cold. And I think they want to see some real movement on the Dreamers, which the president himself set a deadline of January for. And you're seeing so much disagreement within the Republican caucus on that. I think they want to make sure that there's some sort of guarantee there that these people will be taken care of.
Matt, let me ask you. I was going to call you Mike. It's Matt, obviously.
Mike, Matt, whatever.
Well, you've been away so long. But again, I wanted to ask you, do you think that the White House is thinking about what could they accept when it comes to border security? Could they figure out a way to say that's a down payment on the wall?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think the key here is this, which is when it comes to immigration, it's not a little thing that you tack onto a spending agreement. It's actually one of the most controversial and raging political topics we have as a country. And what the president has said is, I'm willing to talk about the DACA population, but it's got to be in context with a lot of immigration overhaul. It's not just about a wall, Dana. I believe they want to see a fundamental and wholesale change to how America sets its immigration policies.
Well, let me ask you, Mo, about the other story, because I think that's all true, and we'll keep an eye on this meeting and bring more about it to you tomorrow after we learn about it. But we woke up this morning to this story about Steve Bannon, the president's former advisor, saying that the Don Jr. meeting with Russians was treasonous. And we had folks up on Capitol Hill that ran into Joe Biden today, who was there to help with the swearing in of the new senators. Take a listen to what he said. Do we have it? All right, we don't have it. I'll tell you. Let me tell you what he said. This is like live TV, guys. So apparently what he says is, that'd be a hell of a statement coming from Bannon. You know how, like, for a half an hour we've worked on that sound, but I'm not playing it now. I just read that somebody close to Bannon saying that it's business as usual for him. He's completely unshaken. But, Mo, while this might look like a little bit of just a battle between two guys, this is pretty significant if President Trump is severing ties with Steve Bannon.
Yeah, I mean, the president just took a torch to Bannon this afternoon with his statement saying that Bannon's lost his mind. I mean, look, Bannon is the architect in many ways of Trump's general election victory. Trumpism and Bannonism go hand in hand in so many different his president's inaugural address reflected Steve Bannon's worldview. So for these two guys to be going at each other like this shows more than just a little internal discord. But it also, I don't think you can ignore what Bannon said. What he said undercuts so much of what Republicans have been saying about the Russia investigation, and I think gives credence to the fact that, there's maybe some merit to this investigation continuing and being looked at very seriously.
Well, that investigation continues, but in the meantime, the agenda needs to continue from the White House. We're going to have this meeting. And, Matt, what do you think about the fact that this statement came from the president himself? This is something that, like, I might have to release something like that as a spokesperson to the president. But it raises the stakes when it's the president himself actually saying this. What do you know about it? Well,
as you know, Dana, this is not a conventional presidency, and the president is his own best spokesman. So if he were to send a spokesperson out to debunk this statement from Steve Bannon, I think he would just end up coming at himself and saying it anyway. So I like it better when the president says it. Look, Steve Bannon is a friend of mine. I think the only people happy today are people on the left and people at rival cable networks who spend all day trying to prosecute a phony case on this Russia collusion. I can understand why people think that having these meetings with these Russians was not smart politics, but it is another thing to say that this is somehow illegal and deserves to take up all the political time of an entire year to spend all this money on focusing on something. So I think Steve made it he was blowing hot, to quote him, on this, and I think it was a mistake. I think he's made the left happy, and I don't blame the president for coming out with his sharp-worded statement one bit.
I have to say that when he's called Steve Bannon just a staffer, That's a sick burn when it comes to White House
being a staffer is a compliment usually, but in this case, you're right. It was meant as an insult.
It was not meant to be one. All right.